his second of the night. Krutov, the other Soviet goal. Messier scored an early first period power play goal for the NHL All-Stars. And welcome back to Le Colisée and ESPN's continuing live coverage of Rendezvous 87. A great period for the Soviet Union. The second period, they got all 3 goals. Valery Kaminsky had 2, including a crusher at 1941 of the second period, and Vladimir Krutov, on an assist by Fedosov, got the second Soviet goal. So they lead it 3-1 over the NHL. Bill Clement will join me in just a few moments to analyze some of the key plays. Well, all over the world, the old saying is everyone loves a parade. They love a parade so much here in Quebec City that they'll turn out by the thousands, even in below-zero weather. I found out that fact of life last night on the streets of Quebec City. Let's take a brief look at some of the sights and sounds. 21 NHL teams were represented with their own floats in this Winter Carnival Parade. The only NHL team that didn't supply a float, Harold Ballard's Toronto Maple Leafs. But that didn't dampen the spirit of the big crowd that lined the sidewalks of Quebec City on a very cold night. Yes, it was a very cold night, about 15 below Fahrenheit, but as you see, the hearts and spirits were warmed as they watched floats from those 20 NHL teams, including the Boston Bruins. They're having a Boston hockey party in the city on the bay in Massachusetts. The favorite float, of course, from the home team, Quebec Nordique, drew raves from the thousands of people that lined the streets in Quebec City. And the bands, well, there were plenty of bands, 20 marching bands and lots of clowns and entertainers, 150 entertainers, a float from the St. Louis Blues. The Blues, of course, will be hosting the NHL All-Star Game next year. And let us not forget our team in our nation's capital, the Washington Capitals. And a look at the marching bands. How cold was it? Look at the trumpets. Even they had to be wrapped up in fur coats. But a credit to the musicians and everybody in the parade route. The cold didn't bother them. They love their chilly weather here in Quebec. The Philadelphia Flyers float included Bernie Perron. Star goaltender led the Flyers to a couple of cups about a decade ago. And, of course, the Edmonton Oilers with number 99. Wayne Gretzky, as big as life, in front. And it all ended with a gigantic fireworks show. Yes, everybody loves a parade, and in Quebec City, it is no different than any other city in the world. A great time was had by all. Yes, indeed. Everyone loves a parade, no matter how cold it gets here in Quebec City. Well, after 2 periods, it's the NHL All-Stars trailing 3-1. We'll have some analysis in a moment. After 2 periods here at the jam-packed Le Colisée, it's the NHL All-Stars trailing the Soviet national team 3-1. I'm Tom Mees in our Le Colisée studios, again with Bill Clement. Bill, we've not only seen 2 varying styles of hockey, but also some varying styles of commentating tonight.
I think the Soviet broadcaster was a little too excited at times, Tom, honestly, but there's nothing that a good color analyst wouldn't cure with that broadcast.
Right, I think you would spice that up just exactly right, Bill. You know, we get into some of the analysis now. You pointed out that the Soviet Union is good at taking advantage of great plays and blocking shots to set up goals and whatnot, and we saw an example of that in the second period.
They certainly are, and once you leave your feet, they are very, very good. It's nice to go down and block a shot, but the people have to understand, watching this, that when a North American player goes down to block a shot, even if the block is successful, if the Soviet gets the puck back, they're very, very dangerous because one player is out of position. This shot comes from the point. It's a blast to the net. Notice the Soviet that's right in behind everyone. Samuelson got a piece of it, and that's the play I mentioned. Had he stayed down, he probably would have ended up with a whistle. But number 15 of the Soviet Union, Hamutov, right there off the side. Fuhrer makes the original save. He struggles to get up. He doesn't really get up in time to make the save on number 13, Kaminsky. Had he been a little quicker, probably would have had a chance. Easier said than done. You know, it's nice to sit here and say he should have gotten up quicker. I know he was trying to get up as quickly as he could, but he ended up stuck on the ice, and Kaminsky beat him to the punch.
Now, a special stat we're seeing tonight, quality shots. And the Soviet Union certainly had their share of quality shots, and especially from the most dangerous area on the ice, the slot.
And it became evident to me that in the second period, that's where the National Hockey League team started to break down. The Soviets were cruising through and picking up pucks. At least twice I saw number 32, Claude Lemieux, after a great first period, all kinds of body checking, skate through and by people in the slot area. And the Soviets are tremendous players. You know what's interesting at the left of your screen? That's Mario Lemieux sliding out of the way. He didn't get a piece of it. Just the fact that he tried to block it, though, I think is commendable. The Soviets hovering all over the place in the middle of the slot. That's an area that there was a definite breakdown in my mind, Tom, that the National Hockey League had in the second period.
While there were breakdowns certainly in the NHL side, there were some breakdowns also on the Soviet side because the NHL trailing 2-1 had a lot of quality shots of their own against Grand Fury. And the forechecking of Kevin Dineen, one of the reasons.
Definitely, Dineen. We talked about forechecking as being so important, and there are no two players on his NHL team any more determined than number 14, Kevin Dineen, and number 20, Dave Poulin. Number 14, here's Dineen doing his work first on Fedosov, gets the puck, goes down. Watch how quickly he gets back up to his feet. Grabs Fedosov's stick. Now Fedosov is down. Dineen will get up again. He's like a yo-yo, but that's what you have to do. And if I were coaching, I would always measure a portion of the player's desire by the speed with which he gets up to his feet after he goes down. And Dineen, there's no questioning his heart. He's a great Hartford Whaler.
In 10 seconds or less, does the NHL have a chance trailing the Soviet team by 2 goals?
It's a very big hill to climb. The Soviets play better when they are ahead, Tom, because they control the puck. Sure, there's a chance, but it's going to be a long third period for the NHL.
All right, we shall see in just a few moments. We'll have more of our Between Periods entertainment in a moment. I'll be talking with the new chairman of the St. Louis Blues. Back with more in just a moment. City Rendezvous 87. I can speak for everyone on the NHL Tonight crew saying we can't wait to visit you fans in St. Louis next year when the NHL All-Star Game will pay a visit to the St. Louis Arena and the great hockey fans of the Midwest. Now, the St. Louis franchise recently sold to a group of investors headed by the new chairman of the St. Louis Blues, Michael Shanahan. He had to leave town today. I was fortunate enough to catch Mike yesterday at the Hilton Hotel here in Quebec City, and I asked him what the attitude of the St. Louis fans is as they get ready for next year's All-Star Game.
Michael, your group took over this franchise not too long ago, and one of the big things you have facing you now that you've taken over the Blues organization, is the All-Star Game. It's coming to St. Louis and the St. Louis Arena next year. It will be different, of course, from what we've seen here in Quebec City. We know that this is a special circumstance, and I know the people in St. Louis are excited, and your organization is excited. What's the attitude in St. Louis concerning next year's All-Star Game?
Well, St. Louis is very excited, as you said, Tom. I just spoke to our mayor, Vince Shamel, this afternoon, and he and the Regional Commerce and Growth Association are attempting to get the President of the United States to make an appearance during part of the activities that surround the All-Star Game. But we've always been able to respond to a challenge, and with hockey, St. Louis is a new city. I think it's one of the newer franchises at any rate, although we've been in it for 20 years. And we're looking forward to showing the National Hockey League and the United States and Canada that we are behind hockey and that we are very interested in hockey, and we're a bona fide hockey town because, as you know, we have a lot of good fans in St. Louis.
Mike, I know you're very excited about having the All-Star Game come to St. Louis next year, and it doesn't happen alone. You've got some corporate involvement that's in the mix as well.
I'm glad you brought that up because in our ownership we have corporations represented like Anheuser-Busch, and Mike Rorty from Anheuser-Busch will be helping us with the All-Star Game. We have the Emersons, Southwestern Bell, McDonald. I don't want to make this a commercial, but we do have a great deal of corporate involvement, and they are anxious to show the National Hockey League just how interested they are in the game.
We're anxious to come to St. Louis next year. It should be a great time.
Thank you, Tom. Look forward to seeing you.
Okay, Mr. Michael Shanahan, chairman of the St. Louis Blues, and we'll be back with more of Rendezvous 87 in just a moment.
Welcome back to Quebec City. I'm Tom Mees. We're just about set for what should be a great third period of hockey at game number 2 of Rendezvous 87. The second period was a great period for the Soviet national team, who showed the world why they're considered by many to be the top team in the world. You begin, when you talk about the Soviets, with their great passing. And passing, even though they didn't score all the time, when the Soviets are passing, it's a beautiful thing to watch. You'll see no less than 6 good passes here in the NHL's defensive zone. This did not result in a goal, but look at the way the Soviets move and pass the puck back and forth, and they are just masters handling the puck. They're getting out of their own defensive zone, I should say, and now that they're moving into position to attack in the National Hockey League defensive zone. That's Vladimir Krutov with the puck, and the nice pass to Fedosov, who's on the backhand. Gets a good shot away on Grant Fuhr. That did not result in a goal, but Vladimir Krutov did get his goal. It proved to be the lead goal, as with the score tied at 1-1.
Krutov would score from an assist by Fedosov. Fedosov from the boards out in front, and Vladimir Krutov scores, beating Grant Pure to make it 2-1. The goaltender, Veloshekin for the Soviet Union, who was criticized mildly after his performance in game number 1, has come up with big save after big save, because there was a period in that second period where the NHL All-Stars did dominate with some great forechecking and good shots, but Veloshekin came up big, as they would say in the National Hockey League, time and again. Now, the third goal is scored by Valery Kamensky. This was the crusher at 1941 of the second period. Kamensky with a beautiful unassisted move there. He scores his second goal of the night, the third of the night for the Soviet Union, and so they take a 2-goal lead over the National Hockey League All-Stars into the third period. And as Bill Clement pointed out, the Soviets are so much better with the lead than they are from behind. Can the NHL climb the mountain? We'll be back to find that out in just a moment.
Tom Mees, he said the NHL team has to be patient in this third period. If they open up, the Soviets will pick them apart. For at least 10 minutes of this period, they have to play their own dedicated game, control the puck, peck away at that lead that the Soviets have. Don't open it.